up top here, okay? And I'll jump from like pig to pig. This stuff here, these big glands, these are your salivary glands. You have one on either side. So those are your salivary glands. In here, this is your pharynx. Pharynx, inside of there is your larynx, which is your voice box, okay? Your pharynx connects to your trachea, which is here, the rib structure, which is your windpipe. Underneath that, right here, is the esophagus, which is the food tube, which goes to the stomach, okay? So that's your esophagus underneath the trachea, okay? Here, you have the blue is your jugular vein. The pink is the carotid artery. So you have a jugular vein, carotid artery. You have one of each of these on both sides, okay? Yours on this side isn't like cleaned out, but you can see over here, there's the pink and the blue. You can see the pink and the blue right here, okay, on that side there. So you have a carotid on each side, which brings oxygen-rich blood to the head. You have a jugular that brings deoxygenated blood and waste back down, okay? This here, the bunny ear things on either side, that and that is your thymus gland, okay? So your thymus gland extends a little bit down into your thorax here. So basically right below or like right near the rib cage where the sternum meets. So that's where I said, like, if you have your bunny ears, like the head and the bunny ears, that's your thymus gland. The little red thing that's in the middle, like this here, that is your thyroid, okay? So if you think of the bunny, like the bunny ears and everything, the head would be the thyroid. This would be the thymus, okay? So if you think of bunny, like with its ears up, head, the head is the thyroid, and then you have the thymus, which is like the ears and everything, okay? Now, as you go down, okay, we took the heart out and everything. These are the lobes of the lungs. So you have all these lobes of the lungs that are here. You also have the lobes on this side. Underneath, here, this white, fat white tube here, this is the dorsal aorta, okay? So the white tube is the dorsal aorta, okay? This, which is like a little bit torn. This here, that's your esophagus, which goes to the stomach, okay? So your esophagus. The esophagus is like flat and brown. This one is more like white. That's the dorsal aorta, okay? So now, there's your dorsal aorta, okay? There's your esophagus, okay? These are lobes of the lungs, okay? So you have all these lobes of the lungs that are here. Now the heart's gone. You can see the trachea here. Trachea, which goes into the lungs. This has a hole in it, okay? So if you blew into these, like if we took these out and they were intact, you could blow into them and you'd see them like inflate and deflate, okay? And then this like liquid would come out of them and be gross, but you'd see them do all of that, okay? This is your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is this thick layer of tissue that allows for breathing, okay? Remember, this is all airtight in the thoracic cavity to allow for that, like, basically that vacuum seal so you could bring oxygen into the lungs and force CO2 out. So that's your diaphragm. Remember this here, that's the inferior vena cava that we cut, that connected to the heart. This giant thing is your liver. So you have all these lobes of the liver here, okay? So you have multiple lobes. Underneath, which you can extract out on your pig, this is the gallbladder right here. It's on the right side underneath. So if you look, at it here, this little green pouch right there, this thing, this is your gallbladder, okay? So this green sac there, that's the gallbladder, which stores bile, which is made by the liver, okay? So it gets stored in that sac. This piece, like if you keep extracting it, it'll hang on by this tube, which this tube here is called the common bile duct, okay? Common bile duct. Now, your common bile duct eventually empties in, if you follow it, it empties into this part of your small intestine, which the first part of the small intestine here is called the duodenum, okay? The duodenum, which is on your sheet somewhere here. There it is, duodenum. Now, duodenum is the first part of the small intestine. This here, this is the stomach, okay? So this is the stomach. This valve, which is hard here, this is called your pyloric sphincter, okay? Pyloric sphincter, which is right there on your sheet. This is the valve that regulates flow of material from the stomach into the duodenum, which the duodenum, remember, is the first part of the small intestine. This spongy looking stuff here, you have a very good pancreas. This spongy looking thing there that's like white is your pancreas, okay? Your pancreas is what secretes insulin, makes sodium bicarbonate, all of those things to help neutralize the acid that's in your stomach. The tongue looking thing is the spleen, okay? So that's your spleen that's off to the side there. It's the same color generally as the liver. Now when you get down here, okay, I'm gonna cut out parts of this. So you guys can take, basically if you take your intestine here, like this is the duodenum, this first part that I'm tearing out. Like remember this here, and I'm gonna cut there. This is that's the pyloric sphincter, stomach, pyloric sphincter, duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine, okay? Now,
how do we know when the duodenum stops in the small intestine?
you don't, it's just the first part of it. It's broken into the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum, but you'll only have to know the duodenum, okay? We're not gonna put it halfway down or 3/4 down. You just need to know like what the first part of it is.
Okay.
You don't have to do this. If you want to look at this one once I get this done, you're welcome to do this if you want to.
What's the big like green bag?
We're getting to that.
Heck is that? What did you just say?
So,
Get that away.
all right. So now you can see all this stuff. Duodenum, okay? Now, this here, okay? This mass, this is a small intestine, okay? You can see the small intestine, like how nutrients, as it travels through here, you see all in that like clear that's there. You see all those like red and pink and blue stuff in that clear. That all is like capillaries, okay? So if you want to, once you take this out, you can break that tissue and you can unravel the small intestine if you want to, and just keep unraveling this thing, keep going with it, and it'll stretch out like the length of this desk here, okay? This mass here is the cecum, okay? So this is giant in a pig because pigs are meant to eat grass, okay? So this is part of, technically, the cecum. You can consider it part of the colon, which when you see colon or large intestine and large intestine are used interchangeably. You have to know the different parts of the large intestine and colon, which we'll go over, okay? But you see this here? You see where this just ends? This big green shub here? Do you see how it just ends right there? Like this. Do you see how that ends? Comes to a stopping point. That's like the appendix, okay? So their appendix, much larger, okay, than ours would be in comparison, but this is the tail end, like portion of the cecum. if you look, okay, all this chub is the cecum. So when you see this corkscrewing spiral here, cecum, this is all large intestine, small intestine that's in this pile here, okay? Now, this portion here, the different parts of the large intestine, okay? If you follow it, and yours will look like this, okay? This is after it spirals through the cecum, small intestine, all of this mass here, it ends up here, okay? The large intestine is more than just this, but these are the major portions of it, okay? So this is called the ascending colon because it ascends, it goes towards the head. So you have the ascending colon where it cuts across like the top of a T. This is your transverse colon or transversal, okay? This is descending, okay? So it descends. Where you get this little coil here, that's called the sigmoid colon. So sigmoid, and then that eventually leads to the rectum, which is down in there that you can't see, and then the anus, where it leaves the body, okay? So you have ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoid, rectum, anus, okay? So those are the main parts of the large intestine, all right? These structures here, now you can see the pancreas real good right there. These ones here, this is a kidney, okay? On top of the kidneys, which I think it's on your list, is the adrenal glands, okay? You can't see the adrenal glands, okay? Like if there's a question on there, you'd have like a pin through the kidney and it might say like, okay, what is the gland that sits on top of the kidney? What sits on top of the kidney is the adrenal gland, okay? That's what releases like adrenaline, all right? Like when like your fight or flight response, like when you get freaked out, adrenaline gets released to make you like run faster or do this or do that, okay? Adrenaline also has negative effects where like people, if they get like severe anxiety, like if you have to give a speech and you start sweating and shaking and your mouth gets real dry, your body's trying to release lots of adrenaline to help you through that. However, the release of excess adrenaline is what makes you sweat, what makes you shaky, what makes you stutter, all of that stuff. So it's being used in a bad way. So when people take like anti-anxiety drugs, what it does is it basically stops or slows the release of adrenaline because you don't need it at that time. You want to stay relaxed. So it suppresses that release. But they sit on top of each of the kidneys. Remember, the kidney filters out blood, and you got one on either side. Leading from the kidney, this here, you have a tube, which this is the ureter, okay? The ureter, and you have one from each kidney, ureter connects to this here, which is the urinary bladder,